సార్ గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ సార్ అందరికి. అది అనంతపూర్లో సార్ అనంతపూర్లో వెళ్ళిండు దొంతి నరసింహ సార్ అక్కడ వర్షం వస్తుందంట. కొంచెం సిగ్నల్ ప్రాబ్లం ఉంది. ఇప్పుడు జైన్ అవుతున్నాడు సార్.
Hello. 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 హలో వినపడుతుందా నాగేష్?
సార్ వినిపిస్తుంది సార్.
మరి హలో అంటే అప్పుడు
ఓకే సార్. ఓకే సార్.
Welcome to 9th day review. And I'm very sorry that delayed. I'm actually in Anantapur and this rain things got delayed and there was a lot of issues. Anyway, I think yesterday on 8th December, it was a very eventful day, giving a lot of hopes for people who have been looking for a very important decision coming out of this. But before that, we'll go. Yesterday, it was children and important thing was the youth stock take report. So similar to global stock take report, I think youth have taken a stock take report, and that's a very detailed analysis of youth activities and then the linkage with the climate change. So all that has been put in that report. And then there was the Dubai Youth Climate Dialogue, which was also organized yesterday. And a number of other activities have also happened. But importantly, there were, Green Skills Fair was also organized yesterday. So green jobs, green skills, basically to give an idea and a stream. And also a lot of people who are pessimistic about a green economy, I think they will be able to, link up with this idea of green skills. And which we all know in India, traditionally we have a lot of green skills and green jobs which are still continuing. Basically, they are livelihoods, but now they are talking of the jobs. So jobs versus livelihoods is another issue. But I think they should have promoted green livelihoods, activity. Then there were a lot of commitments made yesterday. And then one of the important activities I thought was a intergenerational round table titled as one from most vulnerable to most valuable. So placing children's rights at the heart of climate action. So this is basically trying to act as a bridge between generations, and children were brought into this discussion as well. This is a picture where youth stock take report was released. Even though you can't see, you can see a few young faces, but most of them are, elders. Now, I think this UAE COP. There is another group which has endorsed this. So they are saying this COP has set several finance records. So that means a lot of finance has been generated, unlike previous COPs, is what the message is. So it includes Green Climate Fund, which was established a few years back, that they have replenished with $12.8 billion. But importantly, loss and damage pledges have been pointed out, and they have mobilized $655.9 million. This, they are saying, the fastest climate fund ever, replenished. Mobilized, because replenishment is the next phase. So, but then there are voices which are saying this is not, these are only mere commitments. The actual action has not followed. I'll come to that later. Now, coming to the most important point is, this is a scenario where tripling, renewable energy capacity and then reducing fossil fuel usage, all those scenarios have been built. So this, orange band, which shows they're saying if these are the new fields and exploration. So in oil and gas, even though US and other countries are saying they'll phase out, but new investments are being, made by all these countries. So that orange band shows that these investments, that means more oil is being extracted, more oil, gas is also is being extracted. The investment is going into that. So these are different scenarios. Actually, I'll come to the crux of it in the next slide. Now, this is another slide which shows uh, the impact of global carbon dioxide emissions to the pathway of oil crisis or other global happenings. So here you can see uh, in 2010, around that, 2008, 10, there was a global financial crisis. And because of that, oil and gas consumption dipped, and that means the global emissions have also dipped. So this is about the trajectory of carbon dioxide emissions linked with the carbon burning. So this two next phase is around 21, 22, when we had COVID-19 and there were lot of lockdowns. So most of the economies all over the world, they were shut down. That means again oil consumption dipped. That means the emission at that time the air pollution was less, and everyone, even the birds, animals, they also came onto the open. So we were surprised to see so much wildlife coming out. So even that time, that shows that oil consumption dipped, and then carbon dioxide emissions have dipped. Now this is being linked with this now the current estimate expectation to phase out fossil fuels. So even though these are not phase out, but it is about a dip in fossil fuel consumption. So whenever this happened, whenever the fossil fuel dip has happened, this it also impacted a large number of stakeholders. So when the global financial crisis hit, it has hit many people, employment, livelihoods. So even in we know COVID-19 also impacted a lot of economies, and many countries went into debt. Now this linkage is being shown that fossil fuel phase out, even though it is required and it is what everyone is talking about, but the impact of that decision can be very detrimental to poor people, poor countries, and vulnerable. So these discussions, whatever negotiation is happening, I think they need to talk about just transition. So that means if we are transiting from fossil fuel phase out to clean energy, I think we need a lot of safety networks to be followed. So safety networks need to be put in place. We need policies which address the vulnerable people to this fossil fuel phase out. So, for example, if tomorrow India, out of this fossil fuel, India decides to reduce the diesel consumption. Maybe if you are talking of 100 liters, maybe it will say next 2 years we will reduce 10 liters. So if you are reducing 10 liters, it means either the transport will suffer, and if the goods transport suffers, then probably inflation will kick in. That means prices will rise. So the price can impact on the economy and people. So I'm just giving a scenario, and so fossil fuel phase out needs to be imagined, and then we need to talk about more about just transition. So yesterday, whatever discussions have happened, negotiating text. So they are looking at one is how best to plan this fossil fuel phase out, and then how the transition can be just and equitable. So, apart from the climate events, there are negotiation tracks which we could see, different kind of tracks. So there were 23 draft decisions delivered yesterday by evening, and 43 draft conclusions. I'll discuss what's the difference between them, and then 23 draft negotiating texts were released yesterday by evening. Out of 87. And most importantly, Standing Committee on Finance Review, they agree to continue discussions at COP29. That means this important committee have not arrived at any conclusion or any consensus. So they agreed to discuss next year, which is, just for us to understand, it looks very significant in terms of the procedure of negotiations which are going on at COP28. Now, importantly, as day before, if you remember, on 7th, we discussed about global stock take. Now, this particular global stock take negotiation has become crucial for COP28. Energy package, paragraph 35, there are a lot of options were given on 7th December. And this was handed over to presidency, and then now a new set of negotiation began. So yesterday a new draft was been given, and this is 27 pages now. In fact, Paris Agreement, the entire Paris Agreement is only 25 pages. So that means global stock take is becoming more and more broader and important, and probably more important than Paris Agreement. So it has 206 paragraphs with 159 options. So they were different options. So there are 5 options which are very important. One is phase out all fossil fuels in line with science. So if you remember, again on 7 December, this particular text was proposed by Trinidad and Tobago, very small nation, and they linked fossil fuel phase out with IPCC reports through this wording called with science. And then the second option was keeping it below 1.5 degrees and in tune with the Paris principles. So which brings all the just transition principles and all those equity and other kind of principles which were part of Paris. Then the third option is unabated plus peak plus predominantly fossil fuel free 2050. So this is now a 27 period phase out. Unabated is basically, there is no particular definition, but everyone is telling that abated and unabated fossil fuel phase out. So unabated is basically emissions continue. Abated means emissions are controlled or reduced, converted or into a carbon sink, or some technology which does not allow emissions to happen. So this unabated is basically nothing to do with net zero, all those aspects. So peak oil usage and predominantly fossil fuel free until 2050. That's the third option. Fourth is unabated plus net zero. So this again they are bringing. And fifth is no text. That means nothing will be discussed or no, none of the options are considered at all. So this is the actual text in the draft negotiating text. You can see what they say. Option one is phase out of fossil fuels in line with best available science. So based on science, not on politics, this decision will be taken. And other is pathways of 0.5 degrees. Then we are talking of consumption. So option 4 or 5 is actually no text. Lastly. So there was one particular analyst, she put together this sentence, They said we need an outcome that fossil fuel phase out in line with 1.5 degrees integrate best available science and principles and of Paris Agreement, no investments in infrastructure and double energy efficiency as long as and fossil fuel. So these are all under this.
సార్ వాయిస్ వినిపించట్లేదు. సార్ సిజిఆర్ మ్యూట్ లోకి వెళ్ళింది. హలో ఇప్పుడు ఏ క్లాస్ అడిగి వచ్చావా? ఎంత అయింది టైం? 9:46 అయింది కమ్మా. చేసేస్తా, పెట్టేసా. మళ్ళీ ఇప్పుడు ఈ ఫస్ట్ అవర్ ఫ్రీనేనా, మళ్ళీ సెకండ్ థర్డ్ అవర్ బ్లాక్. Problem. Need to attendance 1%.
Hello, back again. I'm very sorry. We are having trouble with the internet. I'll just begin where I left. So basically, we were discussing, global stock take report and the options which are developed there. So this, this element text and our focus is, you can see 5 things are clearly there. One is a link with the 1.5 degree goal. And in fact, they are saying it's not a goal, it is a limit, environmental limit. It's not a goal. And then successful and progress of the Paris Agreement. Fossil fuel infrastructure and fifth is tripling renewable energy capacity because of have alternative energy. Fifth is doubling energy efficiency. Energy as once you are more efficient. And then sixth is ending fossil fuel subsidies. So this 6 how this will pan out for the next 5 days. Now there were clashes between. It was reported that unlike so far, people were only suggesting, but there was no direct conflict. But here there was a conflict. They were trying to circumvent this for fuel phase out, talking about adaptation, which is very important as part of CBDR, common but differentiated responsibility. So they are not talking of mitigation. Mitigation is reducing the emissions or dealing with the emissions. Situation which develops as the emissions continue. So Saudi Arabia tried to steer discussion into adaptation. But Colombia made a statement which it seems everyone appreciated, and they in fact were very happy about it, because Colombia itself is a 5th largest exporter of coal. So being a exporter of coal, still Colombia is saying this. I want you to focus on that, because I feel India should have done this. India as a moral, leader, because past and several in the developing countries, but they did not take, and which is very surprising. So what this Colombia said, they said there is science-based evidence enough to say that our trajectory today is going beyond 1.5 degrees. 1.5 degrees is not a goal. It is an environmental limit and already a disaster. It will change the way we live. The burning of fossil fuels is responsible for 86% emissions. So the answer we need to give our citizens, especially the most vulnerable ones, is to limit the extraction, production, and burning of fossil fuels. So they are talking of complete chain of fossil fuels, not just at burning. And under Paris Agreement, we have set targets to limit emissions, and we see that parties here in this room, this is not consistent with 1.5 degrees. Under this situation, adaptation will not be possible. We will be moving to a world of loss and damage. Beyond 1.5 degrees, it's no longer possible to adapt. So it's clear, if the world temperature rises beyond 1.5 degrees, 55 degrees or 60 degrees, unlivable. Already we are seeing people dying out of it. So beyond 1.5 degrees, it is loss. Colombia respectfully wants to invite parties to commit to the phasing out of all fossil fuels. So this poses unique challenges to countries like exporter of coal. Our economy depends on oil and coal. So the transition depends on economic decisions that need clear international rules. So here they are saying we are ready to make changes, but we need international rules because everyone has to follow, not just Colombia. So they are saying we need clear international rules where the economic decisions for transition will be taken jointly until transition. So our decision to stop oil, so we need to align the financial systems. So this is they are talking of transforming financial systems. Ambition can be punished. So they're saying just by if one country takes that decision, they get punished. So we need to speak to the elephant in the room, that is fossil fuels. We cannot make this transition with fossil fuels. Our transition has to be without fossil fuels, is what they are saying. So this led to long applause in the committee room where a global stock take is being discussed. So this Colombia has taken a clear decision and they are pushing fossil fuel. So I felt, as an Indian, Indian government should have taken, because in the G20, India has clearly made a statement and gave a call out for tripling renewable energy, kept fossil fuel phase out. But at COP28, it has suddenly become silent. Why? India taking back seat, I think we need to understand and try to evaluate. So there are responses, G1777 China, nothing specific about fossil fuel, but they emphasized on based on their national circumstances. Should have the differential status. Canada supported unabated fossil fuels. Oman for Arab group opposed the sector-specific mitigation targets. So they wanted a balance. I think they are talking about sector. Iraq uses any sectoral targets, specifically about oil, gas, and coal. So European Union talks about science and the peaking of emissions by 2025, next 2 years. So they said they were happy with the text, saying it contains ambitious outcomes. Para 38 on role of gas. Basically, role of gas is being they are supporting. Now, OPEC, oil producing company council, oil producers export council, basically Arab group, petro states in the Arab area. It seems that the Guardian has done is asking their members to counter this pressure against fossil fuels. So they're saying if we don't do anything, it will reach irreversible consequences. So the letters, internal letters between OPEC countries say that fossil fuels remains on the table at COP28 and urges the oil states to proactively reject any text or formula that targets energy that is fossil fuel rather than emissions. So OPEC want to deal with adaptation, but rid fossil fuel. Use consumption. So the less acceptable that owned by on the table, and I think OPEC countries need to be a part of this deal. So this now it has become sharp. The negotiations has become more sharp, and so I think countries will take positions clearly, and there might be tomorrow who is saying what. So the views, different views on global stock take. So many people optimism because this text is clearly helping in pushing the COP28 negotiations. Even though there is some element of people think whether it will happen or not. Now coming to people, I was negotiating text will move. This is simply put, a draft negotiation in every COP, so there will be co-facilitated, then they'll put together text, and that will through days. Now, get a draft negotiating text. Once this text, as people discuss and agree on, then there if there is a word problem, they will put it as squares, so they will be eliminated. So once they are eliminated, they call them clean text. So clean text is it will be there will be no brackets or no option. A clean text is almost a final text. So that becomes a draft. This draft decision will be like COP28. A tap wooden gavel. He'll tap like what we see in our courts, Supreme. So there, in a plenary, these draft decisions are put forward, and then president asks for approval. If there are any objections at that level, then they'll try to discuss, and if it becomes lengthy or it becomes serious, then the into again discussions in the negotiating rooms. Otherwise, it will be formally adopted. So now global important. Uh, this is still at a draft. It has to become clean text, and a draft decision has to happen. Adopted, and then formal adoption has to happen. So all this day 20 might take 1 or 2. So I think that is the stage sessions are happening. So this is again overview of different texts which are put to a cargo brief. Now there are different views with really important thing is I have a precedent. It's possible to happen here in Dubai. So I think everyone is expecting a clear decision on fossil fuel, including Sultan Al Jaber, COP28 president. And Jorgensen, Denmark minister, he said the presidency cannot create results on their own. All parties need to step up. Global stocktake is the engine of the Paris Agreement. We negotiate with nature. This again I thought important. Rishika Pardik, she is one of the. He tells us the problem with IPCC 1.5 pathways. This is the wording used in the global stocktake. That this nothing there is a efficiency in these pathways. So what she says is, if this pathway we go, usage will fall only by compared to 2000. It's not a when they are saying IPCC does not mean it will come down to zero. So it is only 60% or 44%. So suppose it is much, but I feel if it is the target is within next 7 years, it might be very ambitious. Because the transition of economies has to need to be very carefully addressed and from the economy on food production, on ways a mind-boggling issue, and all those have to be discussed at the national level. So, but I know India, is India ready internally in the country, this transition, if at all the fossil fuel phase out is worked out, are they going to come back to India, discuss how we can make this happen, maybe depending on the target set in the global stocktake? I doubt it, because I've seen so far any efforts by the government of India. Yesterday there was another letter signed by over thousands of companies and many more. They want a fossil fuel phase out, and they signed a letter which says, I will support the most outcome. So unlike a group of companies, unlike a group of individuals who are trying to stop fossil fuel phase out, there is another to push for ambitious outcome. I know conflict, tussle, I think grappling with the issue, grappling or fight between 2-3 groups. So there is this proposal by Energy Transition Commission. And, they talked about trebling renewables, energy efficiency, all these regulars are there. Now coming to delegations, which I've been monitoring since the day one. Here you can see different COPs from COP1 to COP28. The numbers have increased. So now it's almost 1 lakh delegates are there. And this is double the COP27 last year what happened. So the delegates are increasing, and we have data That we'll discuss tomorrow. How many have come from which group, all those things. So tomorrow, basically today, 9th December, 96 side events are scheduled. So we are going to again see what is tomorrow. So thank you. Last time in. So I will stop here and we'll have a detailed Telugu, not now, so special edition of the video that we this no climate cycle has been more rain and so thank you all of you.